I'm Ali Zendrian, editor-in-chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I uncover news gems that might not have gotten their chance to sparkle and dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted co-host and personal financial advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Thanks as always for doing this. How are you doing, Brandon?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. You hit me with a question that we're going to talk about later that I typically feel like I've got some theories, some thoughts, some ideas behind certain things, but you gave me one that I'm pretty perplexed about. So that'll be interesting to see how that unfolds later.
I can't believe I sort of stumped you.
I feel pretty stumped. We'll see how it turns out. We'll see. I feel there's probably been other cases. I'm not 100% sure, but this one was just, I'm just trying to rack my brains. So looking forward to exploring that.
So it took me about 30 podcasts, but I've reached this point.
That's it.
Go me.
It's going to be the new goal. We're going to have fancy feelings and stump me. I just don't have a lot of thoughts. I don't have a lot of theories on the last one yet.
Our first piece of news this week that I'm definitely going to have some fancy feelings about is related to divorce financial planning. SecureSplit, which an AtoZ communications client just launched today. This fintech lets divorcees perform vital calculations, including alimony, child support, and other things that are either free or for more complex calculations, there is about a $20 a month fee. This could change the game from my perspective anyway, as far as divorces, making them faster, less inefficient, and less costly. I was curious what you think about this, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, even just reading through the article, all the things that you just said, making it faster, less expensive, we're democratizing maybe some of that really quality information, because when it comes to divorce, there are obviously so many moving parts with, just for starters, the emotional aspect, which is massive. And then now you're layering on top of it all of these different weird and obscure financial laws, potentially, depending on someone's situation. Then you factor in the costs involved of, God forbid, you need to send a single email to a divorce attorney and get charged who knows what for even basic questions. So even with, you're telling me the version costing $20 a month and all the things that it has, I mean, that's going to pay for itself. If you're going through this and you even just get one tiny little nugget of information, geez, I mean, it's not even over the whole year, not even the cost of probably any single email to an attorney potentially.
That's very true. Actually, that's probably about not even a fifth of the cost of an email to an attorney.
Right.
You are absolutely correct. But yeah, so in working with them, and shout out to Jamie Lima, who created this. He's with Allegiant Divorce Solutions. So when we first met, we basically bonded over, this is the thing that I wish that I had 3 years ago when I started my divorce, because Lord only knows how much money I would have saved. So I really appreciate what he's putting into people's hands. He is starting out initially with the option that's available for the everyday people. And then the fourth quarter of this year, it will be available to financial advisors, mediators, divorce attorneys, basically any professional that would work with somebody who's getting divorced. So not to put you on the spot, except for putting you on the spot, would that be of interest to you?
Yeah, especially if in the future I have a situation where I'm helping some divorce clients, absolutely. I mean, if I'm able to layer in the human aspect, so of course helping at least as much as I can from the emotional side, but then also being able to provide a resource and say, hey, instead of all these back and forth with your attorney, here's some quality information. Now, again, they're still likely going to have some level of attorney involved here, but if they can at least just feel more empowered, feel like they've got even more resources, even on, we'll call it the tactical, functional, nitty gritty stuff that ultimately is going to arise at least from the financial side in a divorce. I mean, I think that could be a huge value add. And I even see it looks like even from the consumer only version, it looks like there's some level of priority booking with advisors who are specializing in divorce planning. So again, we're talking about using technology to do what technology can do. So that's getting pointed key information, but still the fact that you're able to partner with a real life human being. Because again, especially in a situation like this, there's just so much going on, like we just talked about. So being able to get this great information, but then also being able to get connected to specialists who hopefully you're going to expect them to have, pretty good empathy if they're specializing in divorce planning, you would hope, so you're not only going to get the functional knowledge, but then also the emotional side too. And hopefully that can save you a bunch of time, money, stress, and make it as seamless as a process as it possibly can be.
Absolutely. So I think a key word that you said there was empowered. So actually, and you know this story, but for the sake of everybody on this podcast, among the reasons that I am now working with Brandon and not with the first financial advisor that I was working with is that he was fabulous up until I hit this divorce milestone and then basically went MIA. And that was that critical time that like, I need to know, am I staying in the house? What's happening with the kids? A million different things. And it's that level of uncertainty that's just, your life is upended, but by how much and what do I need to be doing? And so I feel like having something like this available so that you can have that initial calm and the, okay, well, this is the situation. These are the facts in front of me. Now I know what I need to do and what's involved versus the ambiguity of, do I keep the house? Do I do this? Lots of different things I think could get resolved by something like this.
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing, Allie, early in that process, what did you do in order to research some of these things? Because it sounds like at first the old advisor wasn't necessarily responding to things. But so with that, were you just going on Google? I mean, this was like even before AI was super popular. So you have Google. Like, is that what you were doing? Just trying to Google, maybe asking friends? Like, how are you trying to gather this information?
So, for better or worse, I did this the expensive way. And I asked the divorce attorney because
Fair.
what other resource did I feel like I had? And you felt like you wanted something concrete, but not to put down divorce attorneys, because obviously they're good at what they do and quite helpful. Respectfully, they're not financial planners. That's not in the training. You don't go to law school so that you can learn the numbers and the calculations and whatnot. So, right. It can get quite frustrating, even in my experience, having a sit down and you agree, and these are the numbers. And then the next time that you meet, no law has changed, but all of a sudden we're dealing with new numbers. And it's just like, what, explain to me why? Except that maybe we didn't do them right the first time, or maybe the second time we didn't do them right, but it's which one's in my favor and which one do I want? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. Oh, yeah. Because it's just different, right? I mean, we have different specialties. And even I do think one huge benefit of real financial planners is that holistic approach of truly understanding, because a certain aspect of a divorce, I'm going to get more in, say, retirement assets, for example. Maybe that's what one of the proposals is. Maybe on paper, that seems fair or equitable, however you might want to define that. But maybe a financial advisor comes in, holistically looks at the situation, is like, actually, I think you could end up taking a little bit less money because you need more liquidity. We need to focus on those things. But likely without that kind of specialty or that kind of training, it's just, here's the assets. They're 50-50. And I'm like, they might be 50-50 on paper, but does that mean that they're equal or they're in your best interest as the client? Maybe not.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And just one last point on this. So check out Jamie Lima's LinkedIn. So he had an article earlier this week about basically how impacts to our divorcees, financial planning really have a longer term impact. If, for instance, you're not contributing to your retirement fund because you've gotten divorced, divorce is expensive and you can't. Down the line, not doing it for 5 years, I believe he was saying was something to the tune of 150,000 with compound interest and just Sure. what you would put in. So when you think about it, you feel like, well, that's, benign. I must have enough. And, I got to unbury myself from legal fees and whatnot. This would solve a whole lot of problems.
Right. Again, and streamline it, and also still serve that emotional job of exactly where to go for the information, and still have that human overlay for those folks that might not already be working with a good financial advisor.
Exactly. And thank you for being my good financial advisor.
Yeah, you're welcome. I do what I can.
Thank you. So fancy feelings, no over, at least for now. But we will get back to those fancy feelings in a little bit. Our second piece of news this week is from Interactive Broker. So its latest research showed that independent RIAs don't see AI as a threat, but instead look at it as an ally. In the study that they put out, 62% said AI made them more efficient, and 51% said generative AI can provide more informed investment advice. So I was wondering how you feel about AI and how that impacts your work.
Yeah, I'm certainly in the camp of, I believe that it can help advisors become more efficient. So it's interesting because we had talked about, I think in previous weeks, I was even quoted in an article that said, I think it was 4 out of 10 advisors were actually worried about AI. So it's going to be interesting to see who the sample size that was. I'm guessing it was not just independent RIAs, because at least for me, and we'll call it everyone that's in my echo chamber, we're leveraging AI in all of our practices. Not a single one of us has said, oh, wow, I'm really worried about AI insert worry next. We're just like, how do we use it effectively? And like we've talked about, I feel at length on this podcast, Ali, is how do we allow AI to do what only AI can do? And in this press release, we saw a lot of advisors that are bullish on AI say we think it can handle compliance a lot better, a lot of the administrative tasks, so that they can spend more time focusing on clients and the things that truly matter. And that's how I'm trying to implement it in my practice. And I'm not scared of AI. And like I said, I see it as a partner. I see it as a great tool. So that's at least how I'm using it. But what about you? I think I already know your thoughts, but share for the audience what your use case is with AI and some of your thoughts and how you use it.
So I'll be honest, I need to probably be using AI more than what I do. So I have only barely dabbled into it. But I think to your point, especially when you're a solopreneur, this is about achieving your max efficiency. And so if I'm spending a lot of time doing something that's silly versus something that ultimately would help a client, would help me get a new client, anything that actually really matters, it just one outweighs the other, and we know which one that is. So I personally have to get better at it, but I hope that I will.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you will. But at least you're clearly not afraid of it, though.
No, just need to find the time to dabble into it. You will actually see, so among the reasons that the glasses are back is because I actually dug out some clothes and whatnot, and they were hiding under there for Lord only knows how long. So this is my life, basically. It's just we tackle one thing at a time, and hopefully it all works out.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm sure you'll get better with AI. And there's just a bit of a learning curve on the front end of just diving into it. But then once you start getting into it, it's going to make you more efficient and you'll figure out your own workflows. And I mean, there's nearly at this point an infinite number of tools even out there. So what I've been trying to do is instead of trying anything that says AI, go and try all these different tools, have my core AI tech stack, if you will, have my good workflows for there. Because even if, chat might do a little bit better at this task versus Perplexity over here, it's like, unless there's a large difference, even the task and context switching and trying to learn even the new systems probably isn't worth it. So I've been trying to really even streamline that, where instead of trying to add every single AI tool under the sun, let me pick my core ones, have a very specific purpose as to why I use them, and then run with it.
I like that. Just last point on this piece of news. So in the press release, there was a quote about AI. AI will be a quote unquote tremendous ally in winning new business and engaging clients. So do you feel like from your perspective, it's more in the prospecting and the finding new business, or is it more in client engagement, or a little bit of both?
Both. I would say a little bit of both, especially from a content marketing perspective. I rely heavily on AI, where I still have, of course, my own thoughts and I'm critically thinking, and then use AI to help me structure some of that content so I could share it a bit better. So I kind of think of that as my brainstorming, my thinking partner, my proofreader. I feel like I've actually become a bit of a better writer and even better at writing scripts and better hooks because of AI. So that's one aspect that is obviously top of funnel lead gen prospecting side. But then even from a client service perspective, so if I'm going to send out, a monthly report to certain clients, I'll utilize AI to help me proofread that template and then make sure that it sounds the way that I want it to sound. And then whenever I go to send it to each person, then customize it a little bit based on their unique situation. But now I've got a foundation. So that's helped me be a lot more efficient, and I'm not having to write, say, that templated email from scratch every time. I've got a template. I can then just tweak, the one or two sentences that need to be custom to that particular client versus writing a similar email over and over again and not even having a template, or even just building that template on the front end in a much more efficient and effective way. And then also from the research side, I mean, I feel like my research has gotten much faster. Instead of searching the web for random articles on certain in-depth tax changes, now I can utilize AI, still confirm that the source is legitimate and everything's valid, but it just has streamlined that process a ton for me.
Yay! Oh, good. I'm glad. Cool.
Yeah. No, I'm happy too, because you can spend a lot of time researching, especially like, the One Big Beautiful Bill, for example, all sorts of data on there. So I'm like, okay, let's streamline this a bit.
Are you trying to tell me that you didn't read all 1,000 pages?
I did not read all 1,000 pages, and it makes me so angry when I see influencers online that I'm like, I know that you didn't read all 1,000 pages, and that's fine. I'm not judging anyone other than the fact when you lie about it. Yeah. If say you read all 1,000, it's like, dude, come on. You can read like the highlights or the key points. Again, I haven't read it all, but I'm sure there's so much nonsense and not applicable stuff in there, at least when it comes to the tax side. There's a lot of things in there that aren't even relevant. So to say that you read all 1,000 pages, again, if you did, great, more power to you, good for you, but just be honest if you haven't. Don't tell people you have.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
appreciate your honesty.
you teed me up for that one because we talked about that one before.
I did. I knew that that's what, yeah,
You knew some fancy feelings would come out after you said that.
I did. I did. I poked a little, I'll be honest.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll take it.
So, our third piece of news this week is from Candidly, which debuted its multi agent AI assistant called Kate, which is short for Conversational AI Tool. I gotta say, that's a freaking amazing name.
Great
Love
acronym.
it. I don't know how nobody else came up with this first, but Candidly, good job. So, Kate gives financial advice related to college planning and student debt. And this is coming at a point when half of American families are struggling with financing their educational journey, and 43 million Americans have to restart repaying their federal student loans. So I know that we've discussed financial planning for college and whatnot. How do you feel like this might help things?
I think it could be big because a lot of people, again, we're democratizing the knowledge and the information instead of, again, I understand that, yes, we have the AI tools, but especially now, once we start getting closer and closer to, we'll call it larger decisions, even similar to the divorce fintech that we were talking about at the very beginning, we're now starting to talk about some pretty large decisions where you want to really make sure that you're making the right choice, like especially in what income based repayment or what payment plan should you use for your student loans. Sure, there's probably an infinite number of articles and videos that you could search for online, but if you already have trust with a particular tool that you know specializes in this sort of thing, it could be the exact same knowledge that you had to kind of find and scour the web for. But if it's all in one place and you just trust the source, it's almost like it's your source of truth, if you will. Then you can, of course, verify if you really wanted to, but now you're going to feel hopefully more likely and you're more confident in taking that knowledge that you just learned to then implement it because you truly believe it versus some influencer said this one time. Even if it's true, that might not be enough to give you the confidence to then take action. But I think a specialized tool like this could potentially give you that confidence to then take action, which is ultimately what matters.
Absolutely. So, what I thought was interesting about this is so I feel like, at least for myself, and I think I'm basically the average person in this situation, I wasn't really aware of financial advisors as a kid going into college. So, I feel like then them relying as much as they do on their smartphones, on the internet, on things like that, being able to get this information, maybe eventually it points to a financial advisor, but the fact that you're getting that kind of information is super important, as you were saying. So better that you get it somewhere and that it be valuable than that you not have it at all, or just not be aware of where to look. So I think that that's a positive.
Right. Yeah. And especially for the younger crowd, I mean, a lot of folks still aren't able to work with an advisor because of the current fee structures that we've talked about before. So even if they were aware of a financial advisor, we'll say that they're in their mid 20s or mid to late 20s, a lot of advisors aren't going to work with them. Or if they are, they're not going to deliver the same level of service where they're actually going to be diving into student loan planning, because that's just a different expertise than a lot of advisors have. So a lot of our conversations, I feel, in the last several weeks have just been about this democratization of whether it's access, advice, knowledge, information, or some version of all of the above. I think that's going to be helpful. And the biggest thing is, as long as it gets adopted and people see that as the source of truth, maybe there's, again, still some sort of opportunity where they can partner with financial planners that specialize in student loan planning too. Maybe even on an hourly basis for some folks could be pretty beneficial for, I think, everyone involved. And I agree that Kate is a really cool acronym.
Once I saw it, I was like, this, again, like SecureSplit, like, why did this not exist before? It's freaking brilliant.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. So our fourth piece of news, and one that I'm going to have fancy feelings on, I don't know about you, but so Modern Health's latest report showed the country's basically poor state of mental health. 75% of participants said financial stress is fueling their burnout and limiting their productivity. 76% said that financial anxiety disrupts their sleep, mood, and energy. 55% have postponed seeking mental health care for financial reasons, which, gosh, and 77% have worked through a mental health crisis. How have we gotten to this point? What is going on?
Yeah, I don't know. Social media is a blessing and a curse. On the curse side, it's the game of comparison, and it makes it really easy to then spend money or even desire more things, right? I mean, if your circle is, and I think a lot of times too, living in, say bigger metropolitan areas that already have higher costs of living, but then also activities can be more expensive as well. And if your friend group is always going out and doing these things and you feel obligated to spend money, likely some financial stress or anxiety can come into play. And I mean, we've talked a lot about financial wellness programs recently on the show too. And that's one of the biggest things that it's going to combat. And I can't remember exactly where the study came from, but it was, I heard Abby Morton talk about it on the Elementality podcast. So of course, giving her a shout out, but what they're doing over at Elements with their financial wellness program, a lot of the things that they're talking about to employers, and again, this is all public information on their podcast, is talking about this piece where financial stress absolutely impacts worker productivity. Doesn't even take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Hey, if you're more stressed, do you think you will be more or less productive? Probably less productive for most people. And especially if someone's worried about how they're going to make bill payments or make their rent payment. Yep. Work is probably not the top priority for them right now. They're going to be there doing the bare minimum to get by so that they can then focus their attention on this huge stressor in their financial life. But what are some of your thoughts after reading this article?
So first of all, obviously, I am not a doctor of any kind, and so not offering medical advice. But I feel incredibly sad that more than half of people would postpone getting their needed mental health care for financial reasons. I mean, obviously, if you don't have money, I get it, but also the fact that then we can't make more available for free, especially if somebody is in time of crisis, makes me a little sad. And then the 77% that worked through their crisis. So to me, that felt like, and if anybody looks at my own personal working career, I feel like at first I basically did this to myself of just working 12-hour days and doing as much as you can, because then you're that closer to a promotion or the next thing or whatever. And it just cycles now to at a time when I don't think that the expectation of the employer was necessarily there fueling that. It was really me fueling that. Now sure. I feel like the employer really expects, like, well, why wasn't this completed already? Well, because XYZ number of things came up. Oh, well, too bad. You got to keep working and getting whatever done. Or the fact that because we have smartphones around us all the time, then you're looking through your work email on days off and things like that. I mean, I get it. I think that that's the American culture, but also I don't think it's very healthy either.
Right. And I don't know, at least from my perspective, it seems like it's potentially shifting a little bit with our generations, right? With, again, millennials, which you're definitely still millennial. I know you're like, oh, I'm a geriatric millennial. No, you're for sure still a millennial. So we'll say millennials and below, I think, are starting to at least or at least think more intentionally about these types of things, where whatever work-life balance means, I think that can mean different things to different people, but just hopefully not working those 12 hours a day because they feel forced to. And a lot of places are trying to create a culture from the corporate perspective of not that grind focus, which I would even define grind as excessive hard work. And as we know, almost anything to excess is probably not a good thing. Hard work, good. Excessive hard work, not good, especially over long periods, because that leads to burnout. So it's interesting that there's still so many people working through this, likely because there's still some expectations on the corporate side of just doing more and more. And then we saw so many people checking emails on vacation and not even unplugging. And once you get to a burnout, the issue is now you're just going to be less productive. Like, even if you're working those 12 hours a day, I don't care who you are. I don't care even if you're Elon Musk, you're not as productive. There's been so much data that has come out that starts to suggest once you start working more than 50 hours and 55 hours, your productivity actually declines on a per hour basis. I'll have to pull up that study, but that it was a real study that I'm talking about. But I found that interesting. It's like, oh, I'm working more hours, but in reality, we might be physically in front of our computer at our office checking email, but are we being productive?
Right.
And that's a big difference too.
Absolutely. I've hit those points as well, usually late at night, that you keep going and then you realize like nothing's getting accomplished here. So I could just sit here and not accomplish things and time can pass by, or we can call it a day and we can like go try again tomorrow. But yeah, I hope that more people get those breaks and take it seriously, because another point in the study was that 52% of people considered quitting their job to protect their mental health. So I think if nothing else, that should signal to some employers who maybe are having that kind of grind culture. You could lose your workforce. It may be your prized staffers. So let's all try to be a little kinder to each other.
Right. And again, it's showing financial wellness programs clearly are important. So maybe if you could combine some sort of financial wellness program, because again, I think a lot of it is, it's not that the information isn't available out there. It's not like someone is going to see something from a financial wellness piece of content and be like, oh, spend less than I make. I hadn't thought of that. Like, no, we all know that, right? But sometimes it's just having the accessibility to a person or to a resource, again, to that source of truth, if you will, whether that's a trusted app, like we've talked about earlier, or whether that's a trusted person through a financial wellness. I think oftentimes just that uncertainty that you touched on, that's what can drive a lot of anxiety. And maybe even just a 15-minute or 30-minute conversation with that financial wellness coach, even if nothing financially necessarily changes, you don't get a raise, your spending habits haven't changed, you're not saving any more or less, but just knowing that, hey, this is where I'm at. I had a financial professional who I could tell actually genuinely cares about me, has given me some level of advice, and I know what to work on next. So I think that clarity is kind of almost a jargon word, but even just that clarity that could happen in a very short period of time, I'd be willing to bet that could at least alleviate some of it. Now, is it a perfect system? No, of course not. But I think if we can even minimize or reduce financial stress, I don't think we can ever fully eliminate it. But if we can at least reduce it, that's going to be huge. Because then any little bit of reduction, that person's quality of life increases. And now from the employer perspective, a happier employee also probably more productive. So it's like even at the ultimate end game of, okay, let's drive profits, a healthier workforce probably going to drive more profits too. So it can be a win all across the board, potentially, hopefully.
Well, and as far as the win-win for everybody, so if you think about it, each of us that work for somewhere are the brand ambassadors of that place. So ultimately, if you are that, like, I have horrible bags under my eyes, I look absolutely miserable, I'm unhealthy and disgruntled, not really a good brand ambassador, versus the chipper, like, everything's great and such company takes good care of me, a better brand ambassador.
Right. And which company do you think has a more challenging time recruiting good talent? Probably the one that has the bags under their eyes and is like, oh, I'm worked to the bone. Versus, hey, I absolutely love my employer. They do what they can. You know, no employer is ever going to be perfect, or no culture is going to be perfect. But you can at least see, hey, they're at least trying. They're doing more than a pizza party for rewards. Like they're adding benefits that matter. We're having conversations. Their actions are aligning with their words. Because all these companies are going to say we care about our employees' mental health. Anyone can say that, but what kind of resources are they delivering to actually act on it? Yeah. And I think that's probably where there's some disconnect with a lot of the big companies, and we're seeing it with the study.
Yes, agreed. Well put. So our last piece of news, which also may have some fancy feelings, came from the financial advice industry's need of more females, basically. Research from AdvizorPro showed that 24% of advisors are females. While that would be great if that number were higher, what I found particularly striking is that the independent RIAs are the worst when it comes to female advisors. So wirehouses had 31%. Independent broker-dealers had 28%, hybrids had 21%, and then RIAs were 18%. So Brandon, what is up with that?
See, this is the one that you got me stumped on. I don't know. I was very surprised as well that independent RIAs were substantially less on that, or even the independent broker dealers, because I could see that maybe being a bit higher. But yeah, I really don't know. I mean, we were kind of talking back and forth before the show. I just historically, has there been some of the, I think you even called it the bro type culture, where a group of dudes have a team at one of the wirehouses and they leave and they just bring their fellow bros with them? Could it be part of that? Could family planning be an aspect of it? Because even, of course, if the guy is very involved, they're not physically carrying the baby, obviously, and going through all the things that I don't even know very much about. I'm not an expert. You know, obviously way more about that than me. But I mean, those are just my high level ramblings of basically saying I don't know. But what about you? What are your thoughts? I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. So as far as the bro culture, shout out to Carrie Carbonaro and her book, Woman and Wealth. That was where that concept came from. And I could see that being the case. I mean, if you're making friends and these are who you're taking with you, if 3/4 of them are men, like, did the female just not make the team? Like, that logically makes sense to me. I think it could also be, so as we were thinking about the leap to independence, I would think that mostly this applies to women who have families, but that thought that if I go independent, then that could mean that all of the safety net is let out from under me. And what if the whole thing fails? And then everybody starves and, cycle. So could that be it? I mean, I personally can identify with that, but I am not every woman by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, I could think of those as being some cases.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there too with that security piece. Which again, I mean, that's if we're making a broad swath. So I'm not suggesting this applies to every single woman or every single man, obviously, but just a broad swath. At least even in my anecdotal experience working with clients, oftentimes it's the woman that security is one of the top priorities. Maybe security even more than the word freedom. Potentially, with maybe men are I don't know if we are more inclined to be less risk averse. Right. Yeah. Less risk averse, more risky, more aggressive, and more comfortable with risk. It would be a way to say it, which is why maybe more men are in the independent REA space compared to women. Again, I'm not trying to make any broad generalizations, just trying to figure out what might be the reason that this is a lower number. So again, I'm still spinning my wheels.
Yeah. I could totally understand that. So when it comes to wirehouses being the highest, so I think that might be something for RAs to take a look at. I know a lot of times those are disparate opposites, and basically the RA channel feels like we've done it so much better and there's the freedom and whatnot, but there must be something about the wirehouse culture, whether it's just there's the security of a large firm, and even you were thoughtful and brought up the fact that if a woman wants to go out on maternity leave, like for us, for instance, if you're a solopreneur, I don't know what happens. Personally, I guess that means that I just stop for whatever amount of time. Not that there are any plans to do such things.
Right.
But I don't know what the answer is versus, you're at an established company, you know what the company policy is, you know how much you get paid, things like that. So there has to be something to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if we looked at it, if so 24% women in the industry in general, I wonder even just at the highest level, well, I guess we already said it. We said it's 31% in
Yeah.
specifically in wirehouses. I get my best speculation is still going to be what you said on the security piece. And then it could be many things that come underneath the security. It could be, like I said, like we talked about, maybe someone's less aggressive or doesn't want to jump out on their own because of that security piece. It could be the family planning, like we've talked about too. So it could be, I feel, any number of things, but I do think you're onto something, at least at the highest of level with the security is what I would speculate, but also not an expert here. So you have stumped me for sure.
I'm flattered that I stumped you, given the great knowledge that you have. But I think so. When it comes to this, I would hope that then RAs look at, so again, from Carrie Carbonaro's book, Women in Wealth, you should read it if you haven't. The amount of wealth that's going to be transferred down to women during the Great Wealth Transfer is quite high. So one would imagine that we like financial advisors that resonate with us. As you can tell, Brandon and I banter back and forth. This is just normal and natural. I didn't pick a woman, obviously, but one would think that women feel more comfortable with their own. So might be something for everybody to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like we touched on last week, just really making, which I don't know why we would even still need to say this, but just making sure that you're working with, if it's a couple, both parties in the couple, right? Or at least giving the opportunity. I mean, you can't force someone to meet with you. Like I do have some clients that the wife will show up only on occasion, but I do at least my very best. She always is going to feel included. Or sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes actually I talk to the wife more than the husband. And I do the same thing there. I still loop the husband into everything, even if the wife is my main point of contact. So I would just call that being a good human being in general. But that's at least what I do. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of the advisors, if they haven't done things like that, this wealth transfer is going to be not a good thing for them.
Yeah. Just last point, and obviously this brought this full circle, so you can see how my PR mind works. But even if you think about it from the divorce perspective, so to your point, if you're not speaking to both sides of the couple, so especially then in whatever situation, if the wife or if the husband is less engaged with you, are they going to stay with you? I'm going no.
Very
But
unlikely.
that one who was very, very engaged, yeah, maybe, probably. It's difficult to obviously maintain both unless you're at a large enough firm or you can pass them off to a trusted advisor. But again, shout out to Jamie Lima. He had a great article about this. I think that that's also worth thinking about as well, that you don't want to necessarily, if there is a split, basically fuel just one person to go in your direction when you could potentially have both.
That's a great point too. We're not even talking necessarily about that big wealth transfer, but right, it could just be a divorce. And if you never talk to one of the spouses, they're
Holla me anyway. Thank you so much for delving into these hard topics and having fancy feelings. Actually, I think I mostly had fancy feelings, but I appreciate you always putting up with all this.
Yeah, again, great stuff. I definitely don't claim to have all the answers, and today especially, really far away from having the answers. But it's always a fun, even just thought experiment, and I think it's important that we are talking about these things. There's not necessarily one perfect solution for anything, but at least bringing awareness to it and having the conversation, I think is a good thing.
Amen. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Allie.